Welcome everyone to HITEC Live. Bienvenidos. If you are new to HITEC, welcome. I am Kelly Francis, the director of the HITEC Foundation and one of the newest members of the HITEC Familia. I joined HITEC with over 16 years in the nonprofit industry, and I am passionate about supporting the advancement of educational and professional opportunities for those underrepresented in tech, engineering, and business. We are always so excited to bring this community together. If this is your first HITEC Live, this is a bi-monthly series where we bring the Hispanic technology community together to connect, share, and learn something new. Our sessions are informal conversations where we get to hear from our partners and community members on topics that touch on tech, leadership, DE&I, and everything in between. As always, we do a little networking at the end of the session, so if you can, please stick around. Today, we're chatting with our friends and partner Globant, who over the years has engaged with HITEC on thought leadership and mentorship. We truly appreciate your support. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Something new, please go ahead and see the three little dots by your picture and rename yourself with your first name, last name, and your company name. That helps us to identify you when we want to chat. Also, if you can, keep your camera on. It helps us engage and feel like we're talking to a group of people and not just some blank screens. And this is going to be a conversation and as interactive as possible. So be ready to engage. Let's get to it. Today, we are talking metaverse, blockchain, NFTs, and how they are applied in the business world. Globant's Senior Director of Business Hacking Studio in the US, Nelly Ortiz, is going to share with us how these technologies are allowing leaders to disrupt their sectors, how companies can use these technologies to reinvent themselves, and how these technologies are helping to unlock better relationships with customers, employees, and stakeholders, as well as boosting creativity and innovation. A little bit about Nelly. She is currently co-leading the Business Hacking Studio in North America. Wow. She has also worked in blockchain space since her time in IBM, and while completing her master's at NYU, serving as the VP of Marketing at Coin Comply, a startup that was pioneering in the space of compliance for Bitcoin and other digital resources. At Globant, which is a technology services company with a presence in 18 markets around the world, her role is to hack the gap between business and technology, with a big focus on emerging technologies that support the Web3 development, NFT marketplaces, blockchain, VR and AR, digital currencies, tokens, AR, among others. HITEC is so proud to have Nelly here, as she is recognized as a HITEC 100 awardee this past year, a HITEC emerging executive mentor, and fun fact, she has visited over 46 countries. Take me with you next time, Nelly. Maybe we could get into that during the networking session, but please, everyone, give Nelly a warm welcome. Nelly, bienvenidos.
Thank you so much. That was a very nice introduction. I just forgot about all these things that about my own life, but thank you so much for having me. I think this is more, as Kelly was saying, a conversation. So that's why I would love to see your faces. If you could turn on your cameras, because I'm going to start asking questions and calling people out. Some people call me like I'm kind of like a kindergarten teacher for C-suites. So I call people out, I teach certain things, and I love to interact. I run a lot of innovation workshops, and I'm a design thinking coach. So I love doing these type of things where we can actually have a conversation. One of those things too, like because it's a conversation and we have a lot of us here, ideally, if you have a question, if you just want to say something, please just put your hand up virtually here on Zoom. So you can just put the hand up and we will try to actually get to you. If not, I will try to go to Kelly. We have any questions in the chat because I probably won't see them as I'm presenting. I have a small deck. The deck is just a visual help and support for some of the topics. I know it can get very abstract. So sometimes I just want to put them in a deck. As a consultant, I think the deck is always helpful. But yeah, so with that, I will start sharing my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Looks great.
Perfect. So as we said, metaverse, blockchain, NFTs, Dios mío, it's a lot of topics and a lot of buzzwords all together in one, but they actually come along together very nicely. And I put metaverse as a big one here because I think if I go deep dive into the metaverse, I actually touch base into a lot of these topics. So in the first part, I'm going to actually start asking the question to you. What have you heard about any of these topics? And I'm very curious to see your point of view on it. Do you think it's a fad? Do you think it's something that you don't understand? Is there something that you have worked with? I'm just curious to see if you know any definitions or do you have any points of view on it? And I'm just going to put it up for everyone. I only see Jason Rueda right now from Wells Fargo, so I'm just going to go to you.
Okay. Well, so yeah, the metaverse is the obvious overall encompassing of it. I'm not very familiar with Web 3.0. NFTs, we all know because you take a picture of it and you sell it for $1 million.
Right.
And then blockchain is the underlying data that happens in the in Bitcoin exchanges and such, and it's the actual tracking of it. So that's my very high level knowledge of them. And are they here to stay? 100%. With the way that the world has evolved, there's no way that we can go back to the way that we were working 2 years ago. And as that has evolved and changed, it has opened up a whole new form for us.
I love that. And it's true. I think even though this is evolving and it will evolve, I think even in a day's time, things change dramatically. So it's insane how things are changing. It's not going to go away. It'll probably shift. It'll probably be another name at some point, but it's definitely here to stay. So I agree with that, Jason. Jorge, I know you wanted to also speak up.
Yes, Nelly. I'm familiar with blockchain, Web3, Metaverse, but I don't know anything about NFT. So for me, it's a completely new 3-letter acronym that I just hope to learn today.
Perfect. Love that. Anyone else? We have 190 people. I can't believe no one has an opinion. I have a feeling you're Hispanics, you have an opinion and you're passionate about it.
Hi, this is Guille. I'm very passionate about this. I haven't tried all of them, but I'm really interested in learning more about Metaverse today. I have some experience with NFTs and blockchains, with some cases in, with family and stuff that we are doing, but really interested in seeing Metaverse as well.
Perfect. Guille, where did you join us from?
I'm in San Francisco, California.
And which company?
Globant.
Ah, there you go. Yep. More Globers. Love
Yep.
that. You're 25,000 folks. So we even get to know each other in places like this. Eduardo, you had your hand up.
Yes, I do. Hi, Nelly. How are you? Eduardo from the Washington, D.C. area today. I work with Salesforce. And so, yeah, I've heard of blockchain, NFT. I've seen a lot of great Saturday Night Live skits about that. I thought that was pretty creative in terms of digital asset. What I'm curious about the metaverse is I actually recently I'm in the learning and development. I love it, creating environments for people to learn, especially in the DEI space and the Gallup strengths. I recently did a demo with Immersion. Immersion does the kind of scenario-based leadership training where you can actually experience maybe a conversation between two colleagues, and it's in a space where it's role-based scenario. So it's virtual AI, and then you can actually see how would I act, how can I make a mistake, and then like say this or say that. So I'm wondering if Metaverse would be the place where we can have those types of DEI, bias awareness, bystander, ally training. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Eduardo. Les, definitely, I will speak a little bit about it. So definitely. Jason, Jose.
Hey, Nelly. This is Jason. I'm with the Globant. Again, I'm new to Globant. This is my second week. So excited to be part of this discussion as well. Again, talking about these technologies, blockchain, metaverse, NFT, metaverse, the way in which Facebook renamed their corporate portfolio Meta, that's where they want to disrupt the technology first. So everybody is trying to pitch in. So that's how, we look at, and we want to see how this can be collaborated, especially with the NFT. And I mainly work on the retail side. So we just want to see how, the retail commercially, we can socialize this, as well as, how retail commerce can get into these technologies as well. So that's why I'm more
a lot of
focused.
opportunity. And yes, even though Meta changed their name, Facebook to Meta, Globant actually created the Metaverse Studio 3 hours before Meta changed their name.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So now you know a fun fact about Globant. So welcome. Martín, ¿cómo estás?
Ian, hi Nelly, it's good to see you again. Yeah, so I'm also with Globant. Put it in my name just in case. I'm familiar with the terms, and it's like the hype everywhere: blockchain, metaverse, NFTs, and what I'm really interested in is what applications of metaverse can we find in spaces like healthcare, blockchain too in healthcare. I think that's getting really really deep into electronic medical records, for example. I think there's an opportunity there, but mostly in metaverse, like what are some applications that we can use this technology with for healthcare, for example, like helping kids during maybe some painful treatments is necessary. They can experience something different through metaverse technology, or even for experiences for real estate, for home warranty services, things like that. That's what I'm really trying to get into lately.
Perfect. I'll try to speak about some of the experiences I have been part of, and also the ones that our clients are looking into. So definitely. Thank you, Martín. Andrea.
Oh, hello, everyone. I am from Globant, and I'm located in Vancouver, Canada. I'm a project manager, and I'm here because I'm very curious about these new ways of see the world. I have a little knowledge about all of the concepts, but anything into deep. I'm gonna be 100% honest. The other day used some VR, these glasses that you put on, and I was very impressed because it's like you are in another reality. And I think that that's something that we are gonna start to see more often. So I wanted to understand all of the concepts and how can we apply these to our day-by-day customers. How can we pitch this? How can we actually understand how the world is leading to? So I would like to know about all of this.
Definitely. And I'll give you also a sense of like what it is and what is not. I think we have a lot of misconceptions also of, like, for example, the metaverse is only VR. Well, surprise, it's not. And it could be part of it, but you will make more sense of it as I go through some examples, so then you understand what the difference is. But love it. Thank you. Carola.
Hi, hello, everyone. Well, I work as a consultant at Together Business Consulting. I heard about and read about metaverse a lot, but I believe that I don't quite understand the full meaning of metaverse. So I hope that with this talk, I will finally understand the meaning.
Okay, I will try my best. But you can definitely reach out to me again if there's anything you don't understand. Thank you, Carola. Roberto.
Oh, hi. I'm calling from Mexico, joining you from Mexico, and I'm a little familiar with the terms. And for me, the interesting part is this whole shift we've been seeing for many years now, but it's speeding up more and more of how the value of assets is shifted or is shifting from physical assets to virtual assets. Mm-hmm. and how these technologies, of course they're all enablers of that shift, and for sure they're here to stay, or at least this whole trend is here to stay, if maybe some of these might not live too long, but they will be replaced by something similar, more sophisticated. And one thing I would like to learn a little bit more about or understand people's feeling is about the whole privacy issues, because of course, as we get more sophisticated on how transactions are insured and tracked, that also has implications as far as basically the system knowing more and more about our lives. So that's the angle I would like to explore.
That's perfect. Well, thank you everyone for participating, and now gives me a little bit of a sense of like, where can I hone in a little bit more? As you know, my experience also, I think everyone has an understanding of some of the concepts. Some of them is the first time they heard some of them. Other ones, they know the hype, but they don't know why the hype. And then that's what I'm trying to maybe make you understand today. So just a little bit of like, starting with the descriptions of these words, I guess. If you start thinking about blockchain, someone mentioned it's really a distributed layer. I'm sorry, it went crazy, my computer a little bit. Let me stop sharing for a little. So when you get a call somewhere and everything goes crazy.
They're all connected, I know.
Everything is connected, all the devices. But yeah, I'll recoup very quickly. Perfect.
What happens when the metaverse meets the real verse, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's true. This is a Web 2.0 version of the metaverse, and you will get sense of what I just said in a little, but understanding a blockchain, distributed ledger, right? Instead of having a single database that someone controls, let's say we talk about Wells Fargo, we have a bank and we have one ledger with every transaction that has happened. It's something that is distributed. People own it as the people, like peer-to-peer distributed, and it will actually, the transactions will be stored in what we call blocks. So each block has a hash or a piece of the information of that transaction, and that way it's more secure. And it's very, very, very hard to hack. And the people say it's almost impossible, because you will have to hack every single computer that in the world that has that piece of information on transaction for you to get that one transaction information. So it's just a technology that supports a lot of the things that we're going to discuss about today. There's different types of blockchains. We have the one that is probably more well known is the Ethereum blockchain that we use for a lot of the implementations, but you can build your own blockchain, because blockchain, what it is really understanding the attributes of what makes a blockchain, and you can apply them and build your own and create your own network that is secure and safe and transparent and immutable and have all these descriptions. I'm not going to go into the technology per se, but I just want you to understand that you can have a blockchain that already exists and implement on top of it, or you can create your own depending if you have a capacity. Let's say you want to create, and someone was mentioning healthcare. Let's say we want to create a unique blockchain for healthcare, for them to actually have very transparent transactions between the US healthcare. That's possible. We can actually do that, and it's totally doable. But a lot of people are actually using existing blockchains to create on top of. And blockchain has been basically the base of a lot of the innovations that are happening, what I'm calling now the evolution of the internet. Now, blockchain became famous because the first digital currency that ever existed, called Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency means, one Bitcoin and another Bitcoin is the same. Let's say $1 has the same value as another dollar, no matter where you are in this world. However, an NFT is a non-fungible token. Instead of having a token that is a cryptocurrency, which is you can transferable with any other person, it has the same value. An NFT is just a way to tokenize a digital asset. So that's why people were saying we take a picture of something, put it in the blockchain, and it's worth $1 million. It's a true story that could actually happen. The real case of an NFT is that it allows people and collectors to have a one-of-a-kind token that it's completely, you cannot, what they call fungent, you can replicate it at all, because you can track it all the way to the owner. And this created a lot of buzz because creators, let's say artists, and that's why I think it became so big in the art industry. Artists used to have to go through so many middlemen for them to have their art seen as and sold. And then the way that the economics of those things happen, you probably get just one sale of that. Let's say you're Picasso and you have this beautiful work of art, and then you sold it once, and that's the only money you see. In an NFT, let's say I create a digital asset, it's completely traceable until the end of that one. So if the first person buys it, you get that amount of money to you, but also if the second person sell it to the next one, you can actually get a percentage of that sale. So then you can have an economy build that grows and you have passive income coming to you. It's a crazy concept that someone as a creator, I can actually just have my own basically gallery in technology on blockchains. So, companies like OpenSea are basically a marketplace of NFTs, and there's different types of marketplaces that, allow that. However, that's not the only case for NFTs. NFTs could be used to tokenize anything from art to real estate. I was right now working for a real estate company that is trying to do crowdfunding of money for institutional real estate investments. So think about this. You have, let's say, a mall that you want to build, or an exclusive hotel where no one has really normal access to it. Normally it's institutions or very, very wealthy people that want to invest in these things that could have access to certain assets like this. But what if you tokenize this asset and make it unique? So then you can actually own a part of these assets and then invest in it. And because you know that that's a unique part of this building or this mall, then you know that that asset represents something in a digital world that is real, and you can get money from it. Very, very different types of way that you can actually implement the technology of an NFT that is not just, let's say, art and selling art in a marketplace, but different ways to do that. And I'll give you more examples as I go too. Now, what is Web 3.0? The easiest way to make an example of what that is the evolution of the internet. As simple as that. We started with Web 1.0, which is simple websites that you can just read. You can't do anything with them. And remember, I don't know if you remember the GIFs that will go crazy and they just have those animation of Web 1.0. Then we evolved to Web 2.0, where you can participate in it. And there was companies like Facebook and Instagram where you can socialize with people. You can even create content as TikTok. And now Web 3.0 it's a way that decentralization and blockchain have become so everyone can be part of it and we can build an ecosystem together. So it really is about the users, and it brings power back to us, the creators, the people that want to start creating new things. Now, what is Metaverse is how we experience Web 3.0. How do we experience the evolution of the internet? And that's why maybe there's so many definitions of the Metaverse right now, because it really, how the internet keeps evolving, the definition of Metaverse also keeps evolving, because how you experience it is because of some technologies that exist or not now, or how technologies evolve. Someone was saying VR and how VR has evolved. I had to say VR is not nearly yet what I want it to be still. And you can apply VR for certain things, but not for everything. And so it really is how you want to interact with the future of the internet. So I'm going to go a little bit more into deep dive into Metaverse, because I think it will actually bring to life a lot of these concepts. The first thing I'm going to say is there's a lot of money into it. And there's very hard numbers. $1 trillion are expected revenue opportunity within the Metaverse. This means anyone that involves in the Metaverse, right? From people that are building the chips or 5G telecom, or the companies, the gaming companies trying to build like metaverses, or technology folks like us, or brands that are going into it. It's an ecosystem of folks trying to build what we probably call the metaverse right now. And there's a lot of opportunity and money into it, a lot of growth also, with a perceived 43.3% of growth annually. And what I really like about these stats is 76% of companies are actually planning to invest some of their marketing budget in metaverse related activities in 2022. This is a crazy number because this we're saying a lot of CMOs are not just thinking about it, are actually putting money into it. So they're spending money already. And when they're spending money and taking risks, this is where you see the ecosystem actually growing. Now, how do we define metaverse? In the ecosystem, there's been a lot of definitions, but I really like the way that we are actually kind of partition the layers of the metaverse, what we call the 7 layers of the metaverse. The 7 layers of the metaverse try to identify certain things that you need to consider when you talk about the metaverse. The first thing is the experience. How do you experience the metaverse? Through games or socially, through esports, through shopping? How do you experience this metaverse? Discovery layer is all about where do people hang out now that will discover metaverse experiences? And I'll give you examples of that too. But for example, most of these, what we call metasens now, are the folks that are in Discord or actually discovering through YouTube channels. But it's not the typical social networks or the typical hangouts on forums. There's different ones too that are actually coming into place. The creator economy is a big concept in what we call the metaverse, because we really see a big play of like people co-creating and building things from scratch and tracking ownership. And this is why NFTs became such a big thing. Then we have spatial computing. So we were saying, everything that we see from the computer's processing to 3D capabilities, so then it becomes more of an immersive experience, all happens here. And there's a lot of innovations happening. And as you can see, probably we're not there yet, but then there's so many advancements and it's growing and people are putting so much money into it that it's becoming exciting. Decentralization, this is where blockchain comes in. Everything that allows to have a decentralized matter of how we build companies and how we run them. And so that's all about decentralization. Human interface, everything that allows you to interact with it, from a computer to mobile to everything. And infrastructure is basically everything that surrounds it, from 5G towers to cloud, everything. And here you have probably a better view of it. In experience, there's different, what we call now decentralized applications, dApps. And then IoT could possibly also allow people to have better experiences with it if we want to actually merge the real world with the virtual world. In human interface, you see that, AR, VR could be an option, but what about wearables? If you can interact with certain wearables, now there's things that you can actually do. Well, then now the Oculus, you don't even need something for your hands because it can read your hands and you can interact like it. So there's a lot of innovations in the human interface part of it. As I mentioned, discovery, all the Web 3.0 social networks like Discord, Telegram, but also you have smart venues. Like if, for example, you're in retail and you can have points of interaction where you can merge with the metaverse or start the onboarding process with the metaverse, it's a huge opportunity to merge the physical world and the digital world. Infrastructure, as we see, keeps growing. A lot of my clients are still growing through cloud transformation, but cloud transformation and cloud just enables us to actually be more decentralized, also enable us to work on things together efficiently and rapidly. So it just, all of these enablers for what we call, or what we want to be calling, the metaverse. Spatial computing, everything from 3D, and I think this is why gaming has become so popular these days, is because the gamers understand a lot of the mechanics or a lot of the, let's say, the artifacts of spatial computing. If you want to build in 3D, if you want to do holographic, if you want to build digital twins, which is literally like a copycat of yourself as an avatar, somewhere. So all of these things, gamers have it very well drafted already because they have worked on it for years. Decentralization, as I said, blockchain is core, but what about decentralization is interesting for us? We have the, crypto payments. So everything from having a crypto wallet and understanding what type of digital currencies I could use to pay anything, and then to store my value and my assets is very, very important. The ability to track and trace anything that I do and have a transparency so that everyone have access to it. Smart contracts and the ability to actually have everything that is traceable and respected in the community. And then decentralized digital assets, which is the whole concept of a digital asset is not owned by a company, but it's owned by me, which is also a huge concept that people need to understand. Ideally, and this is not there yet either, when I buy a digital asset, I could use it in many digital spaces. So let's say I buy an NFT in one of the marketplaces, OpenSea. Ideally, I can use that NFT in many different platforms. Currently, because we start building that ecosystem, there are limited ways that you can use or have a function of certain NFTs. But like ideally, when you have like those big metaverses where you can utilize these things, it's going to become very interesting, the economics between different metaverses or different gaming platforms, different brands with their own metaverse, because you can also build your own metaverse if you want to. And then lastly, creator economy. Basic, when you build some experience like this, you don't have to, but it's one of the layers that people are applying more. It's how do you enable your users to create with you? And I give you an example. Let's say you're a clothing company, a very high-end one, and you want to launch a new line. What is the best way you can utilize a metaverse for this? For example, I'll give you a great example of creator economy. You can actually make your users create a new line. What about if you actually make your users say, well, in this metaverse, you can build your avatar identically with you. So you have a digital twin, and the digital twin has the same measures of your body, and it looks exactly like you. Then you can actually start creating your own design lines. So you have designers from all over the world, or people that are passionate about design, creating a line with you. Then you can democratize it by actually making everyone vote on the best line that they want to actually say. As a company, what you can do is actually now you have a digital fashion line that you can reproduce in the real world. Let's say, hundreds of people, millions of people voted in these items online, what actually could be like what we call in gaming skins, which are basically a shirt, a digital shirt, or a digital pants. They could also be NFTs, and you can tokenize them like that. But then you then make a decision as an organization if you actually want to manufacture that and bring it to your physical store. So all of those people that co-created that fashion line can go and buy it. So they can not only buy it digitally, but they can buy it in the actual stores. That's just one use case that potentially could be very interesting for them to explore. I know there's some people in the chat. I don't know if we have any questions, Kelly, as of now.
No, so Eduardo just shared a great resource with the group for the training that he mentioned. Jorge mentioned that he's in construction, so maybe if you want to talk about how it aligns with the metaverse, and then privacy issues, and understanding how that'll come into play.
Perfect. Well, thank you for those comments. Now I have them in my view. So talking about the ecosystem and different layers, as you can see, every layer has a lot of companies trying to build that ecosystem, right? So in the experience, we have companies, of course, like Meta. We have Fortnite that started with all the gaming and the skins you can buy literally from digital guns, which probably is not the best thing to bring to the real world, but like, to actual, how do you dress your avatar? How do you make your avatar have superpowers? It's a very interesting concept of how the experience could be different. And I always tell my clients, let's try not to replicate the real world in the metaverse, because that's just boring. And I'm just being very plain and honest, because why would you have a work with gravity in a place where there's no gravity? Like, let's try to explore all your dreams as a kid, you could actually make a reality in the metaverse. And that's what I'm trying to make my clients excited about. It's like the possibilities are endless in terms of experience. And it really is whatever you want it to be, that is an experience that is unique to your users. You just need to understand your users pretty well, so then you understand what goes with your brand. But ideally, you can create something so cool that they will never forget, and they will always want to go back and engage with it. So that's on experience. Discovery, as I mentioned, a lot of companies are trying to build community. So Metaverse and Web 3.0 is all about people coming together. So community building, and how you make those communities make decisions. How do you make communities co-create? How do you make communities engage with each other, no matter where they are in the world? That's what it's all about. So discovery became important, because that's where people make decisions. That's where people come out with different ideas, applications, games, building worlds, etc. So discovery has become important, especially for that. And then the social networks that actually understand that, to actually create those type of communities. Co-creator economy, anything that has to do with people building these things. So Adobe is here, is kind of, we all know Adobe in terms of building, assets, building digital assets, but then you need other type of companies that will help you mint. Mint is just the act of, tokenization of these assets, and actually put it in the blockchain. So then you need companies to do that. So then it becomes an ecosystem of how you enable creators to build something, then mint it, so it's part of the blockchain. And then they actually create an economy for them to get the money back. So then they actually get value from the creations that they make. So it's all about that sense. If you have kids, I am pretty sure you've heard about Roblox. Roblox is such an interesting platform, because it is not blockchain based, but it has a lot of the co-creator economy part of it. So these kids are literally building houses and building lands with kids from China, from Singapore, from Peru, it doesn't matter. Their best friends are called Psycho 1.0. They have different names. They could be women or men or an alien. Like, identity became something completely different. The way that our kids are interacting with the digital world and the physical is completely different than what we have now. Yes, Kelly.
I am so glad that you mentioned that, as I have a 5-year-old and he is constantly, oh, I want to be on Roblox and my friends are playing. And it terrifies me, the idea of letting him have access to that. And from a security standpoint, not every minute when he's playing, I'm going to be able to watch what he's doing. And that terrifies me. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes. No, it's scary. Everything that is new is scary. But guys, we had it worse when we were just starting in the internet as teenagers or kids. We will talk to people that we didn't know. And, in Web 1.0, it was a little scary, and we didn't know anything. So we trust everyone, and security issues and kidnapping and all of that was real at that time too. So that part hasn't changed. Bad people haven't gone away. It's just a matter of us trying to figure out how we understand these technologies and how we limit certain things. But it's crazy how these kids are interacting with each other, and they actually bring it to the real life when they later see their kids, their friends in school, and be like, oh, I built this, and they want to share it with everyone. So it's just and what I love about this too, there's a 50-50 ratio of women and men in Roblox. So our kids are actually interested in technologies and everything. That doesn't matter if it's female or male. Later on, I think our generation is a little bit more despair. There's more male in let's say the hardcore gamers. But if you actually have social gamers, women are more of social gamers. So it's a very interesting way of interacting. So it's really the metaverse that you want to build and how you want to build it. Just so many here for you to see, but in human interface, we were just thinking you can have consoles, you can have VR, you can have desktop on mobile. It really just depends of how
Before
you
we
want
move
it.
on, I see Alejandra has her hand raised, so I just don't want to miss that.
Alejandra.
Hey, Nelly, how are you? It's Alejandra from JP Morgan. I do have a question as it relates to how do we strike a balance between anonymity and being real people? You know, I think as we live the world today, you know, part of the issues around Reddit, Discord, and some of these communities is, and even Twitter now, like people criticizing bots, misinformation on Facebook accounts. And so how do you strike a balance between the anonymity of the internet as it develops into Web3 versus, you know, if there is a person behind, then you're not going to have misinformation or cyberbullying as it relates to some of the topics you were discussing?
I agree. It's a tough question, so thank you. But depends on the experience you want to build. Like some of them want anonymity, sometimes no. And I know in compliance for banking, because you're from JP Morgan, it's very important to know who that actual person is and how to trace that. But I think you can put technologies in place to actually do that and make them accountable somehow. There's also good in anonymity in terms of like there's good of actually deleting the bias. So we were just saying, for example, Globant is going to launch our kind of a Globant office in the metaverse, and ideally I want to go and interview people where there's just like a blank avatar and I don't have to care if they're a woman or a male or where they come from or if they have an accent. Anything could be deleted and it could just be like a plain avatar that it just helped me not judge them from that sense. So in that sense, it plays a positive side. However, in the other side, you need to be able to trace things. But if, for example, traceability is important for you in terms of transactions, that's what blockchain became so important. If you can actually trace everything that has happened and how, and to the owner, so you can make them accountable. But it is a growing ecosystem. I don't think no one has cracked the code yet. I think one of the big things right now that we're even trying to crack at Globant with some of our clients is attribution of sales. As simple as that. Like if you just build a metaverse and you come Ignacio is somewhere very loud. He had an opinion. So we're trying to even attribute and trace, for example, sales that comes from metaverse to real sales. How do we do that currently? We need to figure out how these systems actually interact with each other. And we need to be able to integrate certain systems to actually overlap data. So let's say you have data in your systems that say who this person is. How do we actually match that with what we have in the blockchain or in the metaverse right now? No one has cracked the code immediately right now, but definitely we're going to that because there has to be a way to be compliant, and then there has to be to do ways to trace who that person is, but also give them the choice to do that. And I think if you want to give out your anonymity and just say like, this is who I am, it needs to bring value to me. So the whole concept of like privacy and data security, the user will have control of it. And then it will only give out control when I see the value directly to me again. So that play of value versus security and data, it's gonna go to the user, and more the power is gonna go to the user. And that's a trend that we're seeing right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I know this is a lot of words, but probably the best way to kind of put it all together in one slide in terms of evolution of web and then specifically web 2.0 and web 3.0. So if you think about what does it mean for the metaverse and how does it work, there's different ways that the evolution actually hits. So I'll give you examples of what we call virtual worlds and the difference between them. So when I was saying Roblox, Second Life, Fortnite, and even Warcraft, they are still considered Web 2.0 because they don't have blockchain capabilities, but they do have the creation capabilities. So some people actually call them metaverses. So they say Roblox could be a metaverse. They say Fortnite could be a metaverse. But the Web 3.0 purists will say that only Decentralized, Sandbox, and others are true metaverses. For my clients, I always say, guys, don't get stuck with like having every single Web 3.0 trend in your metaverse or your any application you want to have, which is the new concept we were just talking with people in the industry. Web X.0, call it like that. Whatever you want to build or whatever you want to get into, try to utilize the technologies that work better for that experience. So if you want to utilize some things of Web 2.0 and one things from Web 3.0, do it. You know, nothing is stopping you. You don't have to be applying all the Web 3.0 technologies or Web 3.0 things that are available right now. They probably need a little bit more time to mature also. So just utilize the things that makes more sense. And with that, I'll go on so then you understand what those are. So for example, in our organizational structure, how companies are built and how companies are structured, organized before, meaning now, we have a lot of companies that are centrally owned. Any of the companies that are probably here right now are centrally owned. And decisions are based on shareholder value and the folks that are on the top, the C-suite, right? So that's Web 2.0. Web 3.0 is what we call now the DAO, decentralized autonomous organizations that are built in consensus and they're completely decentralized. And they're also being like the power is by native tokens that are issued to enable participation in governance. So it's basically a democratization of how we make decisions in any part of the organization. And, you know, as I said, consensus and decisions. I think I used to work in a company, we did market research and it was all more like qual than quant. And we had a research around like crowd sourcing. It was even more powerful sometimes than having one SME because the crowd becomes even smarter and makes better decisions. And this is the principle of a DAO too. That we all know as a community what belongs to us and how we actually make it even better, and we build it together and we make decisions that are smarter together. So that's the whole concept of the DAO. Data storage, I think as we mentioned before, it was centralized and now it's decentralized. In platform format, I think this is where the evolution you can't really see the evolution as much. Depends on really the hardware that we see. So in Web 2.0, we have PC consoles, some of the virtual realities, mobile apps, and desktops. It is still very similar to Web 3.0. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of evolution for Web 3.0 in terms of how we interact with it, and possibly even things that are more immersive than just a computer or a mobile or even VR. Payment structure. So traditional payments in payment structure, Web 2.0, credit card, debit card, you know, all of the traditional ones. And then in Web 3.0, crypto wallets, right? So all of the wallets we have, you can integrate, and then that's how you'll make payments in Web 3.0. However, as I said, right now, metaverses could have all of them and plus crypto wallets. So ideally, you have all of the options for people to actually make payments, buy something, transact, anything. Content creators, digital assets, ownership and portability. This is big, but this is where NFTs come into place, right? So before, you used to have one asset. Let's say you buy something in Fortnite, you can only use it in Fortnite. So in Fortnite, you can buy a skin and then you can only sell it there. Ideally, later you can own something that you can transfer to many different portals or different platforms. So it's transferable and it's unique to you. So then you can use it whenever you want to. So in the future, let's say you buy something in Decentralized, then you can go to the sandbox and also use it because it has the same value and portability that you can have. That's how we see the future. Right now, it's not like that. So right now, it's pretty centralized in many, many ways in terms of the transferability of some of these NFTs or digital assets. Content creators, you know, before it was the big studios or big developers that own this. Whereas now, even though they are part of the ecosystem, it's all about the community. So that's why I was honing into community so much, because everyone comes together and builds something. And that's why you bring value back to the creators, the people that want to start building things together. Some of the activities that happens in these metaverses, in Web 3.0, play to earn games. So a lot of the times when you go to, for example, Decentralized, by playing, you actually get tokens or points that you can later use to buy something or get any type of value. So it's becoming very popular to play to earn. Experiences in it, and then all the other activities that happen in Web 2.0, like game streaming. You can have multiplayer games, you can socialize, you can compete in sports. So all of these are kind of activities that people do in these type of platforms. Identity has also become very important. So to your question before, we had in Web 2.0 platforms, in-platform avatars. But ideally, you have this identity that will follow you around, and you know who you share that. So here we say anonymous private key-based identities. It's a powerful concept if you think about it, because imagine if you have the whole control of yourself as an avatar in any type of metaverse, in any type of digital encounter. So then even physically, so for me, ideally, because we travel a lot, I think a lot of folks here do too, you have an immutable passport that is unique to me, and that's my identity, and it has everything in it. Right now, we all have individual passports from different countries, and they're all different. Now with the vaccination cards, don't even get me started with the US, piece of paper that we have as kind of proof of vaccination. So, that hopefully becomes something that if I can store it as a universal identity where I have all of this information, and then I can become my own avatar, no matter if it's digital avatar or myself, and I can be represented in different parts of the world. That's kind of the goal of Web 3.0, having that identity that I can control and secure and have all the information available whenever I want it to be. And then content revenues. I was just kind of telling you about the whole revenue. Before, you used to be able to depend on a platform or a studio or something in the middle that will sell your assets or your content or your creations. Whereas now in Web 3.0, we really want to see the peer-to-peer. So like ideally, everything I can create, I can sell directly to Kelly and just be like, Kelly, that's my price. And this is how we transact in this platform. And that's it, no middleman. So it's a huge change, especially for United States of America, where we have a lot of money made in middlemen. So that's why a lot of these technologies haven't fly with big companies, because that means that a lot of these big companies are not going to be probably needed in some of these Web 3.0 trends and technologies. So we need to figure out how we're going to play in the ecosystem, or we want to build our own. So it makes you think like, what are the possibilities? I'll stop here because I know I just put a lot of information out there. Any questions?
Okay, Jorge just said, do you think having all eggs in one basket with blockchain is depending 100% on it as high risk?
Oh, yeah. Well, so it depends on what you mean with depending on blockchain, right? So it's how you apply it. Blockchain is just a technology, and there's different ones. I'm not talking about investing in blockchain, because that's different. You can invest in many, many things in terms of crypto, in terms of different blockchains and all of those things. But what I see the trend on being is, how do you think the blockchain technology could enable or make better anything in your organization currently? So there's so many things like, and we've seen blockchain being applied in a supply chain, traceability of everything that comes, from diamonds, tracing to, where your food is coming from, and the user understanding the value of that. So I don't think I've ever said, let's put all our eggs in the blockchain basket. What I really want you to understand today is that it's a very, very useful technology that people are understanding more, and you can implement it in many ways in your organization. Metaverse just being one of them that could potentially be disruptive, and people are already using it in a very, very kind of day-to-day basis in a way. Okay.
Quick question. Do you think, in addition to that, today we use certificates to authenticate transactions, right? We have DigiCerts primarily, and we're used to have the little blockchain at the top of the web browser to make sure that everything is secure before you do that, right? It was a huge evolution. Do you foresee that in the future we might not have that and everything will be like I trust, everything is blockchain? I'm assuming we'll assume that everything like that one, like today I do Venmo payments and I do PayPal payments and all that kind of stuff, but it's we trust everything is behind the scenes perfectly fine.
So that's one of those things that people really think where blockchain could be useful is the security and transparency that blockchain brings into place. So when, as you said it, when you have a blockchain, ideally you don't have to have that little lock in the browser because you already know it's secure. However, this is what blockchains that already exist. If you build your own blockchain, you need to make it very transparent to everyone in that blockchain to understand the principles, the transaction security, everything that goes into your smart contract so that everyone understands the trust. So it's, you need, as organizations and as users, I think that transparency has become so important. Everyone needs to understand how things are built. People want to understand how transactions are made. They want to understand how much you make, how much I make, and they're okay with it. But they want to understand how much, if there's obscure fees and people don't understand where the money goes, that's where it becomes a problem. So it's all about transparency. And that's why blockchain became so popular, is because the transparency and easeability of tracing these transactions all over.
That was fantastic, Nelly. There's another question in the chat from Daniel, and it says, I'm curious about the inherent tension between the power of peer-to-peer in a world where we still work for companies wanting to create value and a role for themselves.
Yep. It's a fear we all have, because it is true that, you know, a lot of these folks are building their own, you know, the power is in the user, and it's a true fact that is happening. And we see now a lot of, even what we call the gig economy, right? That it's not even a new trend. We have seen it in COVID, even exploded even more, where, you know, you can have 5 or 6 jobs at the same time, creating even passive income, creating things, getting revenue from different formats, and you don't need like the typical 9-to-5 job. And I think that will definitely evolve. I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon, but it's definitely evolving. Just one way of doing it, for example, some companies were so inflexible in the way that we used to work, which is going to the office 9-to-5 and then going home. And that's how we used to know how Americans used to run business. Now, after COVID, we are working from home. We're collaborating through digital venues.
Thank goodness.
Right. And some of our younger folks don't want to ever go back because now they know how it feels. They can go to, I don't know, Bali and work a week from there and nothing gets disrupted. And it can be as productive as they were before. So even the small things has been disrupted. So we have to see in this ecosystem, our big companies, what do they play? What's the role that I want to play? And then how do I want to enable this? Be maybe a facilitator of certain things, maybe build my own, you know, like how do we want to play in these new trends? And I think that's just where we need to explore more, like really think about what are the opportunities? How do I make new revenue streams? How do I interact with these new customers? And then changing. We're evolving every time. Humans and companies, we're evolving very, very fast. And I think now even more than ever.
Eduardo, your second question that you put in the chat speaks at what my whole life work has been about. How can underrepresented communities take advantage of this decentralized ecosystem? How phenomenal.
So many ways. And I think it's funny because, you know, I think a lot of people have made the argument that Web 3.0 won't impact United States as much as like our communities. You know what? It's probably right. I'm not saying that it won't impact US because it will impact it hugely. What I'm saying is that the impact could possibly be seen more in an underdeveloped countries because they will have the power they never had before. They don't have to go through big institutions to make money. They don't have to go through huge institutions to create something. They could also have the anonymity, like to build a company. And, there's just so many, with decentralization and democratization of a lot of these just industries itself, the opportunity, it really is endless. And it's exciting to me as a Hispanic, seeing how, well, I'm Colombian. So Colombia and tech, like, in Globant, I think we have most of our Globers right now in Colombia. And the eagerness, how we have so many smart people, and they're so excited about technology because they do see it as the future, the present and the future, and the opportunities there of just working in huge projects that will create impact in the world that you probably didn't have access before. For me, it's exciting. And it's so fun to see how a population that probably didn't have access to all of these things have it now. Okay, I'm going to give you an introduction of how we do these things at Globant. So for example, if a client comes to me and say, how do I build a metaverse? I'm going to start asking a lot of questions because that's what I do. That's my job. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, why do you want to build a metaverse? What is the first thing? What are those KPIs you want to impact? Let's say you want to create a new revenue stream, right? Like in COVID, your typical revenue of sales went down. So you just want to explore what's out there for you to actually create a new revenue stream. Then with that and those objectives, that I go and understand who is going to be that customer segment, who are those target users that exist already in these type of realms, and then who do we want to target for these objectives. Then I need to understand what is the value proposition you want to bring in to those users. What is that unique thing and differentiator for you in this space for you to actually bring that experience to them? Then I started thinking about which assets, which content do you have? Right? Assets could be anything from the buildings your offices are to the content that you generate to, let's say we are, I don't know, a content company, and just for an example, I don't know, Disney or HBO, that they have so much content. How do we monetize that content? Which content can we actually bring in to monetize? And if you see it, it's not different as like building value from other brands to just, as merchandise or anything. It's just digital merchandising, if you see it like that. So which contents or assets I want to utilize to monetize in the metaverse? Then I go through the 7 layers of the metaverse, and I need to understand what experience do you want to build? How do you want to be discovered? If you want to do a creator economy or not, how would you actually do that? Which spatial computing, which platforms do you want to build your own metaverse? Do you want to use an existing metaverse? Do you want to live in the different communities? Do you want to play around with decentralization and blockchain capabilities? Maybe you're not ready for that. Maybe that's something we do later, but maybe that's something that you want to really explore. Then you have what we call human interface. So then how do you want them to interact with the metaverse? Do you want it to do it with AR? Do you want it to do it with desktop? And just to give you an idea, all of the blockchain-based metaverse that exists right now don't have VR capabilities. And the ones that have VR capabilities don't have blockchain capabilities. So when we think about Web 3.0, and what I was discussing before, no platform right now has every single Web 3.0 like building block. So that's what you also need to understand when you get into anything like this. And then which infrastructure do you need to build anything like this, right? Then when we know all of this, then we start thinking, okay, what is going to cost me to build, maintain, and manage this metaverse? And then what are those revenue streams that are going to come into me? And when I say new revenue streams, I'm just going to give an example. For example, Nike. So Nike sells shoes. How you manufacture shoes is very different than how you manufacture digital assets. Let's say that Nike want to launch an NFT, different NFTs collections of shoes. These shoes can be used in certain metaverses by avatars. So as an avatar, let's say I'm in Decentralized and I want to buy a Nike shoe that is digital. That's a new revenue stream. I could buy, let's say, a Nike shoe that is special and it's just one and a kind in the Decentralized, and that will cost me, let's say, 1 Bitcoin. And then 1 Bitcoin right now is 30K or more, because I don't know, it's fluctuating so much. I don't even know which one is it right now. But let's say I pay 1 Bitcoin for it, and then that's how I use my shoes. I use it just digitally. But then that's a completely different revenue stream. You're selling digital assets through a metaverse. You're not selling shoes anymore. So you need to understand what other revenue streams you can actually have and how you want to monetize all of these. This is what I call metanomics. In the metaverse, there's different types of economics too, and this is also evolving dramatically. So these are not the only ones that are going to exist, but I'll give you an example. Digital land. To buy a land in the metaverse is getting expensive. So it's also value in itself, and that's why real estate became such a big thing also in the metaverse. There's, for example, in Decentralized, there's a place called Las Vegas, which is inside the Decentralized metaverse. And what they do is actually they buy land and then they lease it. So we have now metaverse landlords, which I think is hilarious. And I love the fact that now we have a whole different, revenue stream, completely a whole industry building up, and they're leasing land so then people can have their shops and everything inside their district, what they call district. Digital assets. So again, NFTs, but they also, if you don't have a blockchain-based metaverse, you can have digital assets that are in the form of skins or anything that you can buy. So you can still transact Web 2.0 way with normal cash or, PayPal, Venmo, whatever you want to buy certain digital assets. However, in Web 3.0, the ones that are relevant are NFTs. Creator economy. The economy that I shared with you before, where I can create something and then actually get money from every transaction that happens, does enable what is called the secondary market. So that I can resell, release, bid on difference, and I can get revenue fees and fees from all of those revenues that come actually after. And you can actually, you have the power to say, what are the economics that I want? I can get 10% of all the sales, or I get 1% of all the sales, or I make none. It really is up to you. So it gives power to the creator again. Physical sales. So that's what I was calling about the attribution between metaverse to the physical sales in your store or anything that you have in terms of business. And then tokens and points in the metaverse itself. So you can sell points, so then you can actually be part of an experience or, do a game. So all of that is also part of metanomics. Questions here? I know I'm a little, I think, above my time.
I actually just took a look at the clock and thought, I don't know what time we're supposed to end.
Yeah.
That's okay.
My calendar is scheduled for 90 minutes, but this is a lot of information now. I'm sorry to speak up. I think of myself as smart, or at least a quick learner, and I am now at that place where I'm like, whoa. Even when you talked about digital land, all of a sudden I'm thinking, how does, as an economics major, but I'm more of a trainer, change management kind of, I'm just thinking about how does, what's the limit? How do people put our brains, right? Our non, let me just be, I was born in the 70s, right? So as innovative as I think I could be, right? There's some resistance that I have into really understanding a world that is not constrained by physical limitations, right? So how could one educate oneself around this in these kind of piecemeal steps? Digital land, just what you said right there, a version of Vegas, but that's because we know Vegas as a place, right? How do we get away from it's almost like Windows, right? Microsoft Windows, everything was based on a file cabinet because we had a physical file cabinet, but then our whole life was in the Windows Explorer ways. I'm just trying to imagine how I would go into, like, let's just say the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, scholarships, that kind of thing. That's where my mind is going. Like, how could I help my niece or other young Latinos growing up to to look at this as a win for them, you know, and that might be for another topic, but that's kind of where my mind is trying to connect the dots about like, are scholarships available? Like, you know, what, you know, trying to wrestle this. Yep.
So you had a lot of thoughts there. I'm going to start with one. I literally was just having a debate that we have a Miami Tech happy hour that happens every Wednesday here in Miami. And I go sometimes to times because I love the discussions. And one of them was exactly that. He was like, I don't understand, like, but physical land is scarce. So like, I know that there's only one Miami and you can only do one thing. And I'm like, to be honest, Dubai just built Dubai out of nowhere. There wasn't even land there. They just put the land on the ocean and they start building on top of it. So we're not that far from what's happening digitally, where we're creating out of nothing. However, it's all about perception of value. And that's why value is very, very important. And perceived value comes from community. So, you know, in the middle of the US, we have a lot of land that hasn't been built. But why? We don't want to go live there. What is the incentive that we have there? Maybe if someone decides one day to create an ecosystem of technology in, like, I don't know, the middle of Alabama or like Wyoming, and, you know, they build this crazy dome over, like, I don't know, people will potentially go there because there's incentives and a perception of value. So here is similar. There's different platforms doing different things. The value of land comes from the perception of value that people put into the land and the perception of the revenue that they can actually get from it. It is as scarce as the community makes it to be. So then also depends of the metaverse, of that specific metaverse. It's called the sandbox. For you to be able to join the sandbox, you need to buy land. That's how it's right now done. It will definitely potentially evolve to like you just coming in as a user and exploring different lands. But they created a sense of a scarcity and urgency and a way of belonging to a community with land. So then by me buying land, I'm part of a community that if I buy a small land, I have less power than if I have a bigger piece of land. So then your governance of that metaverse and ecosystem will be by how much land do you have and the perception of the value of that piece of land. Or maybe you're close to something else that is potentially, you know, Snoop Dogg has a mansion there. Like he has created parties and people come here and it's crazy and the experience is fun, and the perceived value of the Snoop Dogg mansion, I'm pretty sure is higher than other lands that are next to it in the same sandbox. So, you know, the perception of value has become disrupted completely with blockchain and metaverse because it makes us rethink on how we perceive value itself. And this was when I was just talking about cryptocurrency at the beginning. And when people started thinking, what is cryptocurrency? I'm like, well, what is the dollar? If you think about it right now, it's just a piece of paper. The perceived of that value is because before it was the amount of gold that we have in our reserves. It's not even that anymore. So what is the perception of value? It's a centralized community of people in the US making the inflation happen. And in a way, they're controlling inflation because we as a community do that, and economics, as you were saying, but it's controlled. So there's an organization that controls the value of that coin, but it's the perceived value that makes it up and going down. So it's the same principles of economics. It's just hard to grasp because it's not as tangible or physical that we had it before. Hope I answered that question. I know it's
yeah, no, it was probably too big of a question to ask, but you did an amazing job. And I think part of where I go back to is education, because part of the centralization was supposedly to democratize the fact that not many people have access to education. Now we have education. I mean, even my concept of a scholarship is only based on some real limited view that college is actually a value, that there's one college diploma that's better than another. And that doesn't have to be the case. So in this decentralized world, right, the perceived value of education, I can see could be it could be like completely revolutionize that. So how do we get this then to people who currently don't have access to even a college or high school or vocational tech? That's where I'm trying to get to, like the actionable I'm volunteering for a Latino youth organization. How do I educate myself to educate them around how they can take advantage of this, this future, I guess, if that makes sense. And
Right.
that might not be for this discussion. Yeah.
No, I actually have two platforms you can actually send them the links on. One is specifically Hispanic. My friend of one created a DAO for Web3 so people understand it. And it became like this SKIM. SKIM was like for women and like younger generations to understand the news and what's happening. Well, this is similar for Web3. It's called Web3 Familia. So you can look it up, Web3 Familia, very fun. They try to do it, so it's like Spanglish and they try to consume the content so it's easy for you to understand. And then the other one is called Web3 Equity. I also know the owner. She was in a panel with me last time, and she's trying to build equity of Web3 understanding, especially for female, just because there was a gap between male and female, and she's trying to build that gap, but also was from anyone that wants to learn about it. And then of course, us, you can reach us. We're all available here. I actually have, here. So in Globant itself, business hacking, which is my team, it helps you understand a little bit more the business impact of these things and really ask the questions of what you want to get into. Javier is right here also. He's one of our client partners, and he's been leading a lot of these kind of engagements. And when you have questions on how do I start talking about this, especially in retail and EdTech, we have a lot of conversations around that. And we also have a metaverse studio and a blockchain studio. So a lot of the questions we can answer, and we have some of, we can share decks and things that we also have and sources. And we also are, hiring all the time. And I think one way that we hire differently is that we want to hire skills and transferable skills. I don't care about titles. And, when I used to work in IBM, there was a huge incentive of blue collar, trying to get to blue collars. Here in Globant is all about skill set and diversity. And I think probably we're even more Hispanics than other communities. And it's a rare find to have a company like that, but it's so interesting to me. And I'm so proud to represent, Hispanic organization in the US. But understanding that for me, what's important is to test the certain skills that I need to be able to do the type of work that I do. I don't care which, organization you graduated from, how many titles you have. Sometimes even when you're too academic, it doesn't even work. So we just have to have ways to assess the type of skill sets that we need, and then they can actually be applicable to the roles that are in the future that probably don't even exist now. My role didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago, right? So it's how do we perceive that, and how do we want to assess that? I think it's important for us to know.
I love that, Nelly. And I would just welcome, I included my LinkedIn profile for you guys to connect. These are things that the HITEC Foundation is addressing with our internship, scholarship, and mentorship program. So if this is something that is of interest to you, I welcome you to connect with me, schedule a meeting, and we would love to see how we could really evolve our programming and the work that we are doing on behalf of the future Latinx technology leaders. And with that, we want to just open it up to questions, comments, informal conversation now, as we know that the end time, we have about 9 minutes left. So feel free just to kind of begin the discussion. We are so glad that you are here with us for the HITEC Live. And once again, thank you to Globant, Nelly and Nancy for your partnership on this event.